Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
A very special guest this morning, I can assure you, after spending 2 weeks in that beautiful state a little while ago. Tassie has got it all, and way back. The little town of Latrobe produced the lady that sang that song. She is our special guest this morning. Jean Stafford, good morning and welcome to the Two Folks Chatting radio show.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good. You sent me through some of your music. I had a look at some others, but after having spent those couple of weeks, the first and introductory song for you this morning was always going to be Tassie's Got It All.
Thank you so much. That meant so much to me. I was actually in Tamworth living at the time when a radio announcer came up to me and he said, "Why don't you write a song about your home state?" And I thought, wow, I don't think I could do that because it was kind of something that I didn't think I could do anyway. So I went away and came up with Tassie's Got It All, and I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, you should be. It sort of typifies what I like about country music. It's got a bit of that banjo-y twang. It's got a toe-tapping feel to it, but it's also got a story. And the story is your state is a place where people should go and enjoy it because it is quite spectacular. And I sense that even though you have travelled the world with your talents, you have never forgotten where you come from.
Oh, definitely not. Tasmania is so important to me. There is so much of, no matter where I travel, as you said, Tasmania is always and always will be my home. There's so many beautiful memories here, and I come back here now. It's my base because my children are here, and I was living in Queensland for a long time, and I thought, why am I up here when all my family's in Tasmania, and it's a beautiful state. Go back home, Jean.
Yeah.
So I did. And I thought, well, when I'm off the road, this is where I want to be.
Let's take it all the way back to the start. You're a young girl in Latrobe. How did the passion for music hit you, and more importantly, country music?
Well, I was born in Latrobe, and I moved to Meander when I was 2 years old. And there wasn't very much to do in Meander. So growing up there, it was very quiet. It was a little one-horse town, still is today, and it has a post office. I think it still has a post office. And one shop, a hall, a church, little things like that. So it really, what else could you do in a place like that? Music had to be a part of my life. My family was around me at the time, and a couple of the boys from my auntie's family started to teach me guitar, and I just took it from there. And I tell you, it was such a godsend. Not having anything to do and finding something that was really my passion, I found out in the finish, was just such a blessing to me.
Had a lovely interaction with the Meander Valley when I was at Deloraine, run into what I'd call a sister station, community radio station, 96.9 Meander Radio. You've probably had your songs played on there many times. You may have even been into the studios to be interviewed. I'm not quite sure, but
no, so true. Yes,
it's great to see community radio alive and well over there and promoting. I imagine for a young Jean Stafford, your talents way back then.
Well, they were wonderful to me, and they have been right through my career. That's what I find so important with community radio. They're right there with you. They're there for you. They just support so much of what we are and what we're about and our state. That's one thing that I really love about them. There's no, animosity about anything. That there's so much love and respect there, and I think that's really the most important thing.
There was a lot of great Australian country artists when you were growing up. Probably not a lot of females. The great female country stars were in America, and I sense that your style was probably mirrored more on American influence. Would that be fair?
It was, and for no real reason, to be quite honest with you, but I was, from a young age, I listened to the radio a lot, as well as playing guitar, and I tuned into the country music, and that's when I was about 3 years old. We had what they call a mail cart, which was a car that went to Deloraine every day from Meander, and it took passengers there to get their groceries and what have you, and do their shopping. And I'd go down with my mother, and I'd sing One Golden Curl and things like that in the car, and they couldn't shut me up, to be quite honest with you. So it was inevitable I was going to be a singer of some kind. But when I was listening to the radio, what took my attention was Kitty Wells. She had such a true country voice, very clear, said her words very clear, and that's one of the things that my mother always taught me. If you're going to sing, Jean, make sure that the people can understand your words. And she's quite adamant about that, and I really thank her for that and respect her for the way she really... At the time, I thought she was a little bit hard on me, but, you know, these days I appreciate what she did for me, because it's important that the people understand what you're singing.
You took a liking to Kitty Wells as a teenager in Tasmania. Did you ever think for a moment you'd share a recording studio with her?
Oh, gosh, no. Honestly, when Kitty came over here, I met her in Nashville, going back in I guess it was in the early 80s, and we sat in her office and we were eating fried chicken together, and that blew me away, to be quite honest with you, because I always thought these artists, they never did anything like that, you know. And we became very, very good friends, and to think that one day I'd be sitting there talking to her alone, record with her and do some shows with her, just was never, ever a thought in my mind, because I never thought that would ever happen. And when it did, oh gosh, look, I treasure those moments. I really do. She was a wonderful lady, and she taught me so much, and she was like a second mother to me.
How did you did she find you, or did you find her?
No, I was introduced to Kitty by her steel guitarist, Jimmy Crawford. We were over there I went to Nashville to get a contract, to be quite honest with you, not thinking that I probably would get one, but we ran into Jimmy Crawford, and he said, I talked to him about Kitty, and he said, well, I used to work with Kitty. I can introduce you. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, this just doesn't happen. And that's how we got introduced.
Did you, were you influenced by her music before the introduction? Did you know her?
Oh gosh, yeah. That's what I meant when I said that when I listened to her, she had such a beautiful, clear voice. And I just loved her music. It was, that's all I played. And my mother, when I was 12 years old, my mother said, look, well, we didn't have any money much, and my mother said to me, look, I can afford one album for you, and I can afford a little turntable. What would you like? And I thought about that, and it didn't take me long to realise I wanted a Kitty Wells album. So she asked me what I wanted, and I said Seasons of My Heart, because that's what I'd been listening to on the radio. And I played Seasons of My Heart to death. I really played it till there was no grooves left on the album. Well, when I went back to Nashville many years later and met up with Kitty, her husband, Johnny Wright, went away. Like, we were talking in the office, and he went away and came back with a brand new Seasons of My Heart album, and I have it to this day unopened. And I treasure it because it was such an influence to me. I just wanted to be like Kitty. I loved the way she was a very homely person, and you never heard anything bad about her. The way she lived, she was very much a mother and an entertainer, but a mother first, and it was a wonderful way to be. I really appreciated that and respected her.
So, Jean, we've mentioned that you started in the industry so young and you were working with these artists that you inspired to. Tell us a little bit about how you navigated your way through that. Obviously, that would be quite an overwhelming experience.
Well, it was an overwhelming experience, to be quite honest with you. How do I put this? When Kitty came to into Australia, we were working up in Queensland, and we were doing our first rehearsal. I remember standing there. I couldn't believe I was in the same room as Kitty to start with, and I just started, tears was just falling out of my eyes. And Kitty came up to me later and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "I just couldn't hold back the tears." She said, "I noticed." And she just held my hand and just was, so loving. Like I said, she was very much a second mother to me in the finish. And I worked through that. When I went back to Nashville, we caught up, and it was just an experience I will never forget. It taught me so much. It taught me to be very respectable as far as my music was concerned and the way I lived and the things I wanted to do. She gave me inspiration for my future and all the hope in the world. She wanted to take me back to Nashville to work over there with her on her shows, but unfortunately I couldn't do that. I had small children at the time, and a lot of my responsibility was back here in Australia, and I did actually pick up a contract in Nashville. At the time I was married to my first husband, and he wouldn't let me go back, so I missed that totally, and I think Kitty really understood how I was feeling about that and did everything she could to help me through that. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of tears, a lot of disappointments in some cases because of the things I couldn't do. But still, the respect was there, and for Kitty, and respect was there for me, and it was just like we were family.
Jean, clearly there was a lot of respect in the Australian country music world for you. 3 times Golden Guitar winner at Tamworth. How did those awards sit with the young girl from Deloraine area?
Oh my gosh, I had no idea about the Tamworth Country Music Awards. I found out through some friends of mine that there was going to be a contest, music contest in Launceston at the Launceston show, and my friends brought in a piece of paper to me to actually join, and I sent that in to them, not thinking I would be selected, but I was. Went up and I sang one of Kitty Wells' songs, of course. And when it came to the point where they were judging who was going to win, I thought I might have got 3rd or 2nd or something like that, because I did believe in myself, but I never thought that I would win. And when they called out 2nd, I said to my husband, let's go. I had my children with me, and we headed back to the car, and over the sound system I heard the winner is Jean Stafford, and I can remember throwing my guitar up in the air. I think my kids went one which way, and I took a dive back to the stage, and I won a 10-year contract with Hadley Records at the time. And that was the start of my career. Previous to that, I must say, I did do one track with Dusty Rankin with the same company that I won the contract with, and that really was an opening for me. But to win 10 years a contract with Hadley was, well, I was just over the moon. It was a dream come true. And we went to Tamworth, and I recorded my first album, Flowers for Mama, and of course Eric Scott rang me and he said, we need to have you in Tamworth in January. And I said, oh, okay. He didn't tell me why. He just said, well, you know, that the awards are on, and I never knew about the awards. And he said, we'd like to have you here as a guest. So up I go, not thinking, had no idea about what was going on, and went to the awards. And, of course, I took out female vocal with What Kind of a Girl Do You Think I Am? Well, that was the biggest exciting moment of my life, apart from when I received the album for the first time in my hands. It was the beginning of me believing that I could do something, and yes, I felt that I had what it took to start my career off.
Jean, I want to talk to you about an interesting thing that I always notice through country music is the desire by Australian artists to sing with an American twang in the voice. Now, you've talked about the influence of an American singer on your voice, but we even notice it now with Keith Urban, who's our biggest known country star in the world without much doubt, but even he, a boy from outback Queensland, still you'd swear it was an American singing. Is that something that you were conscious of, that you felt you needed to do to get traction in the market, or was it just something that you naturally were drawn to do because of the influence of America?
No, it wasn't something I was aware of, to be quite honest with you. I just sang along with Kitty's album, and I guess it ended up being the American twang, not knowing that I was singing different to what most Australians sang. So it wasn't something I tried to do at all. It was just something that I grew into and unaware of.
Yeah, so you look at our two major male stars over the journey of, let's say, Slim Dusty and Lee Kernaghan, are certainly very authentic, and they sing very outback Australian, and it's known, but certainly it must just be to do with influence, and you were clearly influenced by those American voices, not just Kitty Wells, but I imagine the many great Loretta Lynn is another one that springs to mind, that were big names in American country. Yes,
absolutely. Kitty was my main influence, but I did listen to Loretta Lynn, Jean Shepherd, Patsy Cline. I really did not listen to Australian music. Have no idea why. No real reason, to be quite honest with you. I just liked the sound of American music. And that was my big influence. So I didn't really try to sing American, and have never. In fact, when I first started recording with Hadley Records, they tried to get me to sing differently, phrase my words differently, and no matter what Eric did, I couldn't do it. So it wasn't. I tried, and it just sounded ridiculous. I just couldn't do it. He gave up in the finish and threw his arms up in the air and said, "Sing it as you sing it." That's how it was.
You touched on something before which I find really unique and wonderful about the Australian country scene, is that it is very grassroots and down to earth, and your story about walking back to the guitar with your husband and your children, and carrying your guitar with a sense of slight disappointment in your voice until you heard the sound that your name was put up in lights. From that moment on, were you accepted more amongst the Australian music scene, like the Slim Dusties of the world would be offering you support and guidance?
No. The Australian industry never really supported me, to be quite honest with you. Never. I have no idea why, other than Eric Scott with his record company. My fans did, but never the industry itself, other than Chad Morgan. Chad came to Meander when I was 12 years old, and he had a show at the Devonport Showgrounds the same time as the Devonport show was on. So he came to Meander, and we didn't have any contact to the outside world at our house. We didn't even have electricity or hot and cold running water or anything like that. And Chad just drove up there, and he knew about me, and he asked on the way up where I lived. He said later on that he had an idea of where I lived, but he wanted to call into everybody's house to let them know I was going to be singing in Devonport. So Chad Morgan was the one person, and Dusty Rankin, that really did support me. Other than that, no, there was nobody in the industry that supported me at all. I couldn't even get any real work from anyone. And to this day, I haven't been able to fit in with that area in country music in Australia. I really don't know why, but I tried so hard to get a manager and tour and be on the road all the time, but it just never happened.
That's extraordinary, and I love your honesty and openness on that subject, because that, I imagine, would have hurt a little.
It hurt a lot, and it still does to this day. Sorry. I have no idea why I was, I don't know.
Ostracised, for want of a better word.
Yeah, so even to this day, I'd love to be out on the road. I'd love to be touring Australia. And I know it's harder now since COVID, but there's a lot of people out there that's still touring Australia, and I'd love to be there. But, I don't know if they just don't think that my music fits in. I know that fans want me out there. But, it just never really worked that way for me.
Well, we've got a few country and western fans in Geelong who are connected. We might have to organise a little outing for you to come across and visit us in Geelong, because the spirit of Tasmania, if you're down that neck of the woods, that works beautifully. Get across here and land in Geelong and come and play some tunes. So, Hogs, if you're listening this morning, there's your job. Get a gig for Gene Stafford in Geelong.
I'd love it. I really would. I'd love it.
Now, is it true you're heading back to America to do some more work? And I know you shouldn't mention women's age. You've got to be very careful. But you are on the other side of 70 these days, so to still have the passion and energy to work is a credit to you.
Thank you very much. I'm 73, actually. I turned 73 on the 1st of January this year. And I do still have the passion. I'm still capable of singing the same as I did. I've always kept my voice in order and tried to keep my body in order with going to the gym and looking after myself and things like that, and making sure that I look after my skin and so forth. So I really try to and keep my weight down. I like to make sure that my weight is down, and that's been one thing I've always been very careful with and passed on to my children as well, because Sherry, my daughter Sherry, she sings and she does some of country music, but she also does her own thing with a little bit of rock and roll, and she works with her husband as well and works with me sometimes in Tasmania, which we haven't done for a little while since COVID, but I feel like I'm able. Have no problems with my health or anything like that, so I just feel as though I've still got a lot to offer out there, and I'd love to be able to do it.
Oh, we'd love to see it. We really would. Now, you mentioned your daughter singing. I've been wanting to know, obviously after a career like you've had, what sort of advice have you been passing on, or would you pass on to anyone coming up in the country music scene in Australia?
Well, you know what? It's so hard these days for a new up-and-coming talent. It was not so hard when I was coming up, because it was pretty well standard as far as what you wanted to do, and since we've had COVID and everything, it's kind of made it hard for the up-and-coming artists to get their work and get out there and be known. What I have noticed, and I'm a little disappointed about in country music, in the music industry in general, I suppose, is their dress, the way they dress. I think people see you before they hear you, and it's very, very important that you dress the part and look fabulous when you come out on stage. I think that's the first thing people see. And then if you've got a really good voice that you've nurtured through the years, and even if it's only a few years, work on your vocals, make sure they're clear. Don't lose your personality. There's one thing that a lot of people do when they get start up in their career, and they probably win their first award, or they've done something that's really important in their career, and all of a sudden they're not approachable. That's the one thing that I've always been adamant about. Don't lose your personality, because people love what they see, and that's part of who you are. So if you become unapproachable to your fans or even to your workmates, it's a no-go zone there to me. I just find that not a good way to be, because that will interfere with your career later on in life.
Jean Stafford, thank you so much for your time this morning. Best wishes with the future. Please keep in touch with new work that you have and you want promoted on the station, because I know our country and western fans at the station, and certainly the couple of fellows that have shows that display country music would certainly know your work, and it would be a joy to get you to town one day. So we'll do a bit of work at this end, you do a bit of work at your end, and see if we can meet in the middle.
Thank you so much. I look forward to that. Thank you.
I've selected The Glory Bound Train as your song on the out. I hope it's one that you like. I found it that
I do.
Nice and catchy little tune. Jean, thank you so much and best wishes.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, both of you, and have a wonderful day.